They thought I'd beg for their company. They thought I'd crawl just to hear their laughter around my table. But when my own blood turned its back on me, I realized something sharp. The loneliest man in the room can still decide who gets the last word. I remember that Thursday evening too well. The clock on the wall ticked louder than usual, every second punching through the silence of my empty kitchen. I had laid out 3 plates, polished silverware, and even pulled the roast from the oven early. The smell of garlic and thyme hung in the air, smell of home, of family. But the chairs stayed empty. At 7 sharp, my phone buzzed. A message from Jake, my oldest grandson. "Sorry, Grandpa. Can't make it tonight. Busy. Busy." That was the 3rd week in a row. 10 minutes later, a message from Clara, his sister. "We're with friends. Maybe next time." No apology. No warmth. Just excuses typed out like I was some charity case. I sat there, staring at the plates cooling under the dim light. I used to be the man who fixed their bikes, who drove them to soccer games, who paid for braces and sneakers and college books. I used to be the man they ran to, shouting "Grandpa," like it was the sweetest word on earth. Now I was the old mouth they didn't want to feed. I pushed the roast aside, the knife still glistening, and poured myself a glass of water. It tasted bitter in my mouth. The silence stretched until the sound of my own heartbeat felt too loud. That's when I decided, no more waiting for them to show up. No more begging for scraps of attention. If they wanted to treat me like an afterthought, I'd give them a memory they'd never erase. The idea came slowly, like smoke curling in a cold room. At first, it was just a thought. What if I invited them all at once? A big family dinner. They wouldn't resist, not if they suspected I was finally ready to talk about the will. So I made the calls. My voice was warm, steady, almost cheerful. "Come this Sunday. One last family dinner. Just us." Jake hesitated for a second before asking, "Will we talk about the future, Grandpa?" I smiled into the receiver, though my jaw clenched tight. "Yes, Jake. We'll talk about the future." By Sunday evening, my house was full for the first time in months. Coats tossed carelessly on my couch, perfume and cologne mixing in the air, voices buzzing louder than the old chandelier could handle. They were here for one reason, and it wasn't me. I had cooked nothing fancy, just potatoes, bread, and tea. When I set the table, I saw their faces falter, waiting for steak, maybe wine, something worth posting on their shiny Instagram accounts. "What's this?" Clara whispered to her brother, loud enough for me to hear. Jake chuckled. "Guess Grandpa's savings don't stretch too far." Their laughter scraped across my skin like sandpaper. I sat at the head of the table, my hands folded. My heart beat slow and steady. This was the moment. "You know," I began, my voice calm but cutting, "I wanted you all here to remind me of your mother's words. She once said, 'A family that shares bread stays together.'" They exchanged glances, stifling smirks. Bread, potatoes, tea. Not the banquet of a man about to announce inheritances. I let the silence hang just long enough before reaching into my coat pocket. The envelope felt heavy despite being light as air. "This," I said, tapping the paper, "is my last decision. My will." Their eyes snapped open wide. The air grew thick. Suddenly, the bread didn't matter. They were leaning forward, practically drooling. I pulled out the folded paper slowly, deliberately. "Everything I have, every dollar, every piece of property, goes to those who stood by me when you did not." The words cut sharper than any knife. Jake blinked, confusion fighting with greed. Clara opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Then I dropped the names. My neighbor who checked on me after my surgery. The nurse who came by when I nearly collapsed in the garden. The church volunteer who brought me soup when I was sick. Strangers who became family while my bloodline walked away. "You can't be serious," Clara spat finally, her voice trembling. "Oh, I'm serious," I replied, my tone cold as the steel in my drawer upstairs. "All you'll inherit from me is the memory of this table." The room turned brittle, like glass ready to shatter. Jake's face flushed red. He slammed his fist on the table so hard the plates rattled. "After everything we've done for you," I cut him off. "Everything you've taken, that's the only truth here." Their voices rose, arguments spilling like boiling water. But I just sat there, calm, steady, letting them drown in their own outrage. Inside me, something that had been broken for years began to knit back together. Because for the first time, I wasn't the abandoned old man. I was the judge, and the verdict had just been delivered. I knew they wouldn't let it end there. Their eyes weren't just angry, they were desperate. And desperate people don't walk away quietly. That was fine. I had more in store. The shouting didn't stop when they left my table. It followed me like an echo through the night, bouncing off the walls of my quiet house. Their voices, sharp, entitled, dripping with the kind of anger only greed can feed, kept circling my head. Jake's fist had left a faint dent in the wood. Clara's half-finished glass of tea still sat there, lipstick staining the rim like a red mark of war. I didn't sleep. I sat in the armchair by the window, the one where my wife used to knit on winter evenings, and watched the empty street outside. My neighborhood was silent. Everyone else had their families tucked into warm beds. Mine had gone home fuming, plotting, whispering. By morning, I knew they'd come back. Desperation doesn't wait. And I was right. The knock came at 9 sharp. Hard. Repeated. I didn't hurry to answer. I wanted them to stew for a moment on the porch, let the cold March air bite at their faces. When I finally opened the door, Jake pushed past me without so much as a greeting. Clara followed, her perfume filling the hall like smoke. "Grandpa, we need to talk," Jake snapped. His jaw was tight, his eyes bloodshot. He hadn't slept either. I stayed calm. "About what?" "Don't play dumb." Clara's tone was sharper than broken glass. "That little stunt you pulled last night. Saying you're giving everything to strangers? Neighbors? Nurses? Are you trying to humiliate us?" I let the words hang. Then I asked, evenly. Or maybe I was trying to tell the truth. Jake spun around, stabbing his finger in the air. "You owe us. We're your family. Everything you built, everything you saved, it was for us." "For you?" I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "When did I sign that contract, Jake? Was it when I paid for your college? Or when I covered your rent after you lost your third job? Or maybe it was when I gave you the down payment for that shiny truck you couldn't afford? Which time exactly did I sign my life away to your greed?" His face flushed crimson. Clara stepped in, her voice smooth but venomous. "Listen, Grandpa, you're not thinking clearly. You're old, lonely, vulnerable. People can manipulate you. These friends of yours probably saw a weak man with a little money and decided to take advantage." I almost laughed. The irony was too rich. "Funny," I said coldly. "That's exactly what I see when I look at you two." Their expressions froze for a moment. Just a moment. Then Jake grabbed the envelope from the table. The will. My hand shot out, iron strong despite the years, and I snatched it back. "Touch that again," I warned, my voice low and steady. "And I'll call the police." Theft looks the same whether it's by a stranger or by blood. For the first time that morning, I saw doubt flicker in their eyes. But doubt never lasts long with greedy hearts. Jake exhaled hard, pacing. "You can't do this. Do you have any idea how this will look? Our friends, our coworkers, everyone knows you've got property, savings. They're expecting us to inherit. What do you think happens when word gets out you left it all to outsiders?" Clara chimed in, her voice icy calm. "You'll make us look like fools. People will think we abandoned you. They'll think you hated us. That's not just cruel. That's reputation suicide." "Reputation suicide," I repeated softly, almost tasting the phrase. Then I looked them dead in the eye. "Maybe that's what you deserve." Silence. For a second, the only sound was the old grandfather clock ticking in the hall. Then Clara changed her tactic. She softened her voice, even let a tear slip down her cheek. "Grandpa, please. We love you. We just want what's fair. What Mom would have wanted." I stared at her. She was good. Too good. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed her. But I remembered her smirk when she thought I didn't notice, remembered Jake's laughter over potatoes and bread. "Love doesn't look like that. You want fairness?" I asked. "Fine. Fairness is this. People who show up, who care, who stand by me when I'm weak. Those are the ones who inherit. You two? You couldn't even show up for dinner." The mask slipped from Clara's face. The softness vanished, replaced by sharp edges. "If you go through with this," she hissed, "we'll fight you. Court, Lawyers, whatever it takes. You won't win. I stepped closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet my eyes. Try me. They stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture frame rattled on the wall. The sound echoed through the house long after their car pulled away. I picked up the photo that had slipped sideways. It was of my late wife, smiling in the garden with a basket of tomatoes. Her eyes seemed to meet mine, steady and calm. You'd like this, wouldn't you? I whispered, seeing them finally face a wall they can't climb. I set the photo back in its place and sat down at my desk. The will lay there, untouched, untorn. My pen was ready. If they wanted a war, they were going to get one. But not the kind they expected. Because while Jake and Clara were busy planning to fight me in court, I was already planning something far sharper. Something that wouldn't just deny them my money. Something that would strip away the very image they wore in front of the world. And when it was done, the whole town would know exactly who my grandchildren really were. The trick with revenge is patience. You don't win by swinging wild. You win by watching, listening, and waiting for the perfect strike. I learned that long ago on construction sites. Measure twice, cut once. One wrong move, and the whole frame collapses. So after Jake and Clara stormed out of my house, threatening lawyers and courts, I didn't chase after them. I let them stew. I let them think they were still in control. Meanwhile, I sharpened my tools. The first step was information. I drove down to the county clerk's office the next morning, a drab building with flickering lights and the smell of burnt coffee in the hall. I signed the visitor log with steady hands and asked for public property records. Jake's condo, Clara's new car, the land they bragged about on Facebook. I wanted to see who actually paid for what. 2 hours later, I was sitting in the stale reading room flipping through records. What I found didn't surprise me, but it tightened the knot in my gut. The condo was under Clara's name, yes, but the down payment came from a cashier's check tied to my own bank withdrawal 2 years back. I'd given her a loan to get started. Funny, I never saw a penny of it returned. Jake's shiny truck? Financed under my name as co-signer. He'd been late on 3 payments already. If I hadn't stepped in last December, they'd have repossessed it. And yet they stood in my kitchen, screaming that I owed them. I copied the documents carefully, slid them into a folder marked with bold black letters. Evidence. My banker's instinct never left me. Paper doesn't lie, even when people do. The second step was a small test. A jab to see how they'd react when the ground shifted under them. That Friday, I called Jake. My voice was tired, almost weak. Jake, I need a favor. My water heater's leaking. Could you come by and help? Just a quick look. I already knew what his answer would be. Grandpa, I'm swamped. Got plans tonight. Maybe next week. His tone was flat, annoyed. I could hear music in the background, laughter. He wasn't swamped with work. He was swamped with himself. Of course, I said quietly. Don't worry about it. But I did worry. Not about the heater, it was fine. I worried about how fast he took the bait. No hesitation, no thought, just dismissal. So I called Clara the next day. Sweetheart, I'm not feeling well. Could you maybe bring by some groceries? Just a few things, bread and milk. She sighed so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Grandpa, I've got yoga and then brunch with friends. Can't you order delivery like everyone else? I guess I could, I murmured. Good. Gotta go. Love you. Her voice dripped with fake sweetness before the line went dead. I sat there with the silent receiver in my hand, my chest heavy. They had failed the easiest tests. Failed without even trying. I wrote it all down in my notebook. Time. Date. Their exact words. Evidence again. But gathering papers and phone calls wasn't enough. I needed them to feel the shift, to sense something was happening even if they couldn't name it. So I prepared my first strike. Small but sharp. On Sunday morning, while the town was at church, I walked into the community center where the monthly bulletin board hung. People posted everything there. Yard sales, job offers, announcements. I pinned a flyer of my own. A simple notice typed in large letters. In gratitude to those who stood by me, my estate will reflect their loyalty. True family is not always blood. No signature. Just that. By Monday, the whispers had started. I heard it at the diner when I stopped for coffee. 2 old ladies leaned close at the counter, whispering my name. Did you see that note? Must have been about his grandkids. Heard they don't visit. By Wednesday, Clara called me. Her voice was sharp, panicked. Grandpa, what the hell did you post at the community center? Everyone's talking about us like we're villains. I sipped my coffee, kept my tone calm. If the shoe fits. You think this is funny? She hissed. People at my job are looking at me sideways. My boss even asked if everything's okay at home. You're ruining my reputation. Reputation suicide, wasn't that your phrase? I said, my voice flat. Then I hung up. That night, I sat in my chair with the folder of evidence on my lap. Bank withdrawals, loan records, copies of their dismissive texts. The flyer had been just the beginning, a tremor before the quake. But I wasn't done, not even close. Because the more they panicked, the more mistakes they'd make. And I intended to be there, watching, recording, collecting. I ran my finger down the spine of the folder and whispered to the empty room. You wanted a fight. Well, you've got one. And this old man doesn't play fair. At midnight, my phone buzzed. A message from Jake. Meet me tomorrow. Alone. We need to settle this before you make things worse. Settle this. His words burned on the screen. I knew then, part one was over. The real battle was about to begin. I met Jake at a diner on the edge of town. Not the family place where I usually had breakfast, but a darker spot off the highway where the jukebox was always broken and the coffee tasted like burnt rubber. He'd picked it. That alone told me everything. He didn't want eyes on us. He was already there when I walked in, hunched in a corner booth. No smile, no wave. Just that hard glare he used to copy from me when he was a teenager, back when he thought looking tough was the same as being tough. Grandpa, he muttered as I slid into the seat across from him. Jake. The waitress shuffled over, chewing gum like she wanted to bite someone. I ordered coffee. He waved her away. He was too wound up to eat. You've got to stop this, he started. His voice was low but sharp, like a knife being tested on stone. These flyers, the gossip. People are talking. Clara's furious. I'm furious. You're humiliating us. I leaned back, let the vinyl squeak. Funny. You didn't mind humiliating me when you skipped my dinners. Or when you told people I was old, useless, broke. But now that your pretty little image is cracking, now you care. His jaw tightened. You think this is a game? We're family. Family shows up, I shot back. Family doesn't treat their grandfather like dead weight until the wool comes out. For a moment, his mask slipped. His eyes flicked away, then back, filled with something I recognized. Not guilt, fear. What are you so scared of, Jake? I asked quietly. That people will find out what you really are? He slammed his palm on the table, making the silverware jump. The waitress looked over, but didn't come. She'd seen enough fights here to know when to stay out. You're making a mistake, he growled. You think those neighbors, those nurses, those nobodies care about you? They don't. They just want what's yours. And if you hand it over, you'll die alone. Forgotten. I leaned forward, close enough he could smell the bitterness of my coffee. I already live alone, Jake. But I'm not forgotten. And when I die, it won't be me who's erased, it'll be you. His face flushed. His hands shook, just slightly. He wasn't used to me pushing back. All his life, I'd been the steady one, the provider, the fool who said yes when I should have said no. That man was gone. You think you're clever, he said finally, his voice low, almost a whisper. But you're old. You don't understand how things work anymore. Courts don't care about your little speeches. Papers can be challenged. You'll lose. I smiled, slow, deliberate. I've spent my whole life building. Homes, businesses, reputations. You've only spent. Cars, parties, lies. Let's see who the courts believe when it comes to proof. That word, proof, hit him like a stone. He blinked fast, shifted in his seat. What proof? I let the silence do the work. His eyes darted, his breath caught. He knew I had something. He just didn't know how much. Finally, he leaned back, his bravado cracking. Clara's right. You're trying to ruin us. No, I said, calm as ice. You ruined yourselves. I'm just turning on the lights. We sat in silence, the hum of the diner's old fridge filling the space. Then Jake stood, pulling on his jacket. This isn't over, he said. You think you're in control, but you're not. You'll regret this. He left without another word. Through the window, I watched him peel out of the parking lot, tires screeching against the asphalt. That night, I returned to my quiet house. I sat at my desk, folder open, notes spread. His fear had told me everything. He was hiding something. Something bigger than just neglect. I flipped through the papers again, the condo down payment, the truck payments, the texts. Then my eyes caught the detail I'd missed before. Clara's job listed a salary far higher than she ever admitted to. Yet she was always crying poor, always asking me for help. Where was that money going? I scribbled in my notebook, follow the money. Both of them. The clock ticked past midnight. The street outside was silent. I closed the folder, looked at my wife's picture on the mantel, and whispered, "They think I'm too old to fight. They've got no idea what's coming." At 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Just one line. "Stop digging, old man, or you'll be the one buried." The message glowed on my phone screen long after I read it. "Stop digging, old man, or you'll be the one buried." I stared at those words in the dark, the glow lighting the wrinkles on my hands, and instead of fear, I felt something colder. Amusement. They finally showed their hand. Jake and Clara wanted me quiet, pliable, confused. But now they were rattled. And rattled people make mistakes. I slipped the phone into my drawer, locked it, and sat at my desk. The folder of evidence lay open, pages spread like a map. My pen hovered, then scratched down 3 words across a blank sheet. Follow the money. The next morning, I put on my old brown coat, the one with the frayed cuffs, and drove downtown. The bank still smelled the same as when I opened my first account there 40 years ago. Polished wood, faint perfume, and the scent of paper that had been pressed too many times. "Mr. Whitaker," I greeted the manager, an old acquaintance who'd once coached Jake's little league team. His face lit up politely, but I caught the shadow behind his eyes. He knew why I was here. "I need statements," I said. "My accounts. And if you can, copies of the transfers I authorized the last 10 years. He hesitated, lowered his voice. "Family trouble? Family betrayal," I corrected. By noon, I walked out with a folder thicker than a Bible. In the truck, I opened it and began flipping. Page after page, withdrawal after withdrawal. Tuition, car loans, condo deposits, emergency help. Thousands upon thousands. My sacrifices in black ink. But then something odd. Transfers I didn't remember. Small at first. $500 here, $1,200 there. Always labeled family support. The handwriting on the slips wasn't mine. Clara's job at the insurance office gave her access to plenty of paperwork. And Jake? He'd been around often enough to know where I kept my spare checks. They weren't just leeches. They were forgers. That night, I called an old friend, Harold, a retired accountant who still tinkered with numbers like they were puzzle pieces. He came over, wearing his wire-rimmed glasses and a jacket that smelled faintly of mothballs. I spread the papers on the kitchen table. "Tell me what you see." He squinted, shuffled pages, made notes. His pencil scratched against paper like a surgeon's scalpel. Then he looked up, eyes sharp. "Tom, these signatures aren't consistent. Look at the loops on the T's. Look at the slant. This isn't your hand. Someone's been writing checks in your name." I felt heat rise in my chest, not from shock, but from validation. I hadn't been imagining it. "Can you trace where the money went?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "Most of it funnels into a joint account, Jake and Clara's. But there's another trail. Payments going to a company called Brightway Consulting. Never heard of it. Because it doesn't exist." He pushed the paper toward me. "Shell Corporation. Registered last year under Clara's name. They're moving money through it. Could be laundering. Could be tax evasion. Either way, it's illegal." I sat back, my chair creaking under the weight of revelation. My grandkids weren't just greedy, they were criminals. The next day, I tested my theory. I stopped by Clara's office unannounced, carrying a grocery bag of homemade cookies. I played the doting grandpa, smiling, shaking hands with her coworkers. "Clara always talks about you," one of them said politely. I knew a lie when I heard it. Clara appeared, pale as paper. "Grandpa, what are you doing here?" "Just thought I'd surprise you," I said warmly, handing her the bag. "Wanted to thank you for all you've done." Her eyes darted, nervous, like a deer caught in headlights. She whispered harshly, "Don't come here again." That was all the confirmation I needed. She was hiding something, and it was close to blowing. That night, I made my move. I called Jake. "Son, I've been thinking. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should reconsider the will." There was silence, then the sound of his breath quickening. "Really? Grandpa, that's the right choice. We can sit down, go over everything. Tomorrow," I said. "At my house. Bring Clara." I hung up before he could gush. I didn't plan to give them the will. I planned to give them the rope. The house was quiet the next evening when they arrived. I had the papers spread neatly on the table, the forged checks on top. I sat there calm, steady, while they walked in like wolves thinking they'd cornered their prey. "Sit," I said, pointing to the chairs. My voice had no warmth, no softness. Clara tried to smile. "Grandpa, we're glad you've come to your senses." I slid the papers across the table. "Recognize these?" Their faces drained of color. Jake reached, but I slammed my hand down first. "Forgery, theft, fraud. I could walk these into the sheriff's office tonight." They froze. The silence in that room was heavier than lead. "You thought I was weak," I said softly. "You thought I wouldn't notice. But I've got every record, every forged signature, every dollar you stole. And now you're going to pay, not in money, but in reputation." Their mouths opened, closed. Words failed them. For the first time, I saw fear, not of losing an inheritance, but of exposure. When they finally stumbled out into the night, muttering threats and excuses, I stood by the window, watching their car disappear. I knew they wouldn't give up, but I also knew I had them cornered. Because tomorrow, I was going to take my evidence one step further. Not to the police. Not yet. No, I was going to the one place that would destroy them faster than any courtroom. The court of public opinion. I didn't sleep much the night after I showed them the forged checks. I sat at my desk with the evidence spread like cards in a poker game. The kind of hand you don't reveal until you're ready to rake in the whole pot. My grandchildren thought they could bluff their way through life. But I'd played too many hands to fold now. By sunrise, I knew exactly what I had to do. I wasn't going to the sheriff. Not yet. Police and courts take time, and time gives liars room to twist. What I needed was something faster, something sharper. My whole town had always been a stage, and everyone knew everyone's business. So I decided to use that stage. Saturday morning, the town square was alive with the usual rhythm. The farmer's market, kids running with balloons, the hum of old men arguing politics on the benches. I walked into the crowd carrying a plain envelope. My hands didn't shake. They hadn't shaken in years. I went straight to the bulletin board by the bakery, the same one where I'd pinned my first note. Only this time, I brought more. Photocopies. The checks. My forged signature. Clara's shell company registration. Jake's overdue truck payments. I posted them one by one, neat and orderly, like a carpenter driving nails into a frame. A hush spread behind me. Whispers. A woman muttered, "Is that Clara's name?" A man said, "That looks like Jake's account." Phones came out, screens lit up. Photos were taken, messages sent. Within minutes, the market buzz had shifted. It wasn't about apples and honey anymore. It was about the old man who finally fought back. By noon, I was at the diner, sipping black coffee while the whispers grew louder. 2 booths over, I heard a couple whispering my name. "He's got proof," the woman said. "Forgery. Fraud." The door creaked open, and in stormed Jake and Clara. Faces red, eyes wide. They spotted me instantly. The whole diner turned to watch as they marched to my booth. "You sick old man," Clara hissed, her voice high enough to carry. "What did you do?" I set my cup down slow, deliberate. I told the truth. Jake slammed his hand on the table. "You think this is funny? Everyone's talking about us. Our jobs, our friends. People are calling us thieves." "Then maybe you should stop stealing," I said coldly. The diner went silent. Forks froze midair. Even the fry cook leaned out the window, grease-stained spatula dangling. Clara's eyes glittered with rage. "You'll regret this." I leaned forward just enough that only they could hear me. "Not as much as you already do." They stormed out, but the damage was done. Every head in that diner turned back to me, some nodding, some whispering. The story had left the bulletin board, and entered the bloodstream of the town. That evening, I sat on my porch, the air cool and sharp. My neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, walked over with her little dog tugging the leash. She smiled, but her eyes were serious. "Tom," she said quietly, "people are saying you exposed your own grandchildren." "People say a lot of things," I replied. "But is it true?" I looked her dead in the eye. "It's truer than anything they've ever said about me." She nodded slowly, then patted my arm. "Good. About time somebody taught that generation a lesson." As she walked away, I caught sight of headlights at the end of the street. A black SUV idling too long, then pulling away when I stood. They were watching me now. Good. The next morning, I went to church for the first time in months. Not for God. He and I had our own unfinished conversations, but for the crowd. I walked in with my head high, my evidence folder under my arm. The pews creaked as I sat. I could feel the eyes on me. Halfway through the service, I saw Clara slip in, her face pale, her hands trembling as she clasped them in mock prayer. Jake came later, looking like a man about to face a firing squad. After the sermon, as the congregation spilled into the foyer, I made my move. I stepped to the front, cleared my throat, and held up a page. "This is what family betrayal looks like," I said, my voice steady as stone. The room froze. Paper crackled in my hands as I showed the forged checks. The whispers rose like wind through dry leaves. Clara gasped, tried to speak, but the pastor raised his hand for silence. Jake looked like he might bolt for the door. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just spoke the truth, each word dropping heavy into the still air. Blood means nothing without loyalty. These two forgot that. And now the whole town knows. That afternoon, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Neighbors, old friends, even people I barely knew. Some offered support. Some just wanted the details. The story had spread like wildfire. But the real blaze hadn't started yet. Because that night, as I sat in the dark kitchen with only the hum of the fridge for company, a brick shattered my front window. Glass sprayed across the floor. A note tied to the brick read, "Last warning. Shut up, or next time it won't be glass." I picked up the brick, turned it over in my hand, and smiled. They were panicking, and panic was exactly what I wanted. The brick lay on my kitchen table all night, shards of glass still glittering around the frame like ice in the moonlight. I didn't sweep them right away. I wanted to look at them, wanted the reminder that my grandkids had crossed the line from greed into threat. By dawn, I had already decided. If they wanted war, I would give them one they could not survive. Jake showed up at my door the next evening. No knock. Just barged in, shoulders squared, eyes bloodshot. Clara trailed behind him, her lips pressed thin, phone clutched in her hand like a weapon. "You think this is funny?" Jake's voice shook the walls. "Posting our names all over town? Waving fake evidence around? You're destroying us." "Fake." I leaned back in my chair, calm as stone. "Tell that to the county clerk who stamped those papers. Tell it to the bank that logged every forged check. Go ahead, scream fake until your throat bleeds. Doesn't make it true." Clara slammed her phone on the table. "We'll sue you. Defamation. Elder confusion. We'll tell the judge you don't know what you're signing, that people are manipulating you." I laughed, sharp and short. "Good luck with that. You'll have to explain why your signatures match mine better than my own." Jake lunged forward, but I stood. Even at my age, I had inches of steel left in me. "Careful, boy. You put your hands on me, and I'll have the police here before your knuckles stop throbbing." For the first time, he hesitated. Rage in his eyes, but fear underneath. He wasn't used to me calling his bluff. That night, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to Harold, my accountant friend. Put everything together. Every document, every forged slip, every transfer to that shell company. I want a packet thick enough to crush their lies. The second was to the editor of the local paper. Old friend of mine from the Rotary Club. I told him I had a story, one that would make his front page sing. He said, "Bring me proof." I said, "I've got a folder heavy enough to break your desk." The third was to my neighbor, Mrs. Henderson. "Do me a favor," I asked. "Be at the town hall meeting on Thursday. I'll need witnesses." Her voice was steady. "Wouldn't miss it, Tom." On Wednesday, the tension was thick enough to choke. Everywhere I went, Whispers followed. At the post office, a clerk raised her eyebrows and said, "Heard your grandkids are in trouble." At the grocery store, two cashiers stopped mid-scan to ask if the rumors were true. By afternoon, I saw Clara in the parking lot, cornered by two of her co-workers. Their voices carried, "You forged checks? You lied to him." Clara's face was white as chalk, her smile brittle. She muttered something about misunderstandings, but no one bought it. She caught me watching, and the hatred in her eyes could have cut glass sharper than the brick they'd thrown. That evening, as the sun bled red across the horizon, another note slid under my door. This one handwritten in Jake's messy scrawl. "If you speak at that meeting, you'll regret it." I picked it up, smoothed the paper, and pinned it on my fridge with a magnet shaped like a hammer. A reminder. A trophy. Thursday came. The town hall smelled of old wood and dust, benches creaking under the weight of neighbors packed shoulder to shoulder. The mayor droned on about potholes and budgets, but everyone was waiting. Waiting for me. When my turn came, I didn't shout. I didn't pound the podium. I simply laid the folder on the table and opened it. Page after page. Forged checks. Transfer slips. Bank statements. Copies of Clara's Shell Corporation registration. Gasps rippled through the room. Whispers hissed like snakes in tall grass. Jake leapt to his feet. Lies. He's old, confused. I held up the note he'd slid under my door. Confused enough to keep this? The room erupted. Some shouted. Some laughed. Some shook their heads. The mayor banged his gavel, but order was gone. My grandkids' names were mud, and nothing could clean them now. I walked out into the night air calm, steady. Behind me, Jake shouted my name, his voice cracking with fury. Clara sobbed, mascara streaking her cheeks. I didn't look back, but as I reached my truck, headlights flared. A car screeched into the lot, stopping inches from me. Jake jumped out, fists clenched, eyes wild. "This isn't over," he roared. "You'll pay for this, old man." I stepped closer, close enough for him to see that my hands weren't shaking. "No, Jake," I said quietly. "For once in your life, you're the one who's going to pay." And yet, as I drove home under the dark stretch of highway, I knew something heavier was coming. Because men like Jake don't stop at threats. They escalate. And if he wanted a final war, then I'd give him one. But on my terms. The night after the town hall, my house felt different. The silence wasn't peace anymore. It was loaded, like the stillness before a storm. I sat in my armchair with the lamp burning low, the folder of evidence tucked under my arm like a rifle. I knew they would come. And I wasn't wrong. At 2 in the morning, tires crunched on my gravel drive. Headlights swept across the walls. I didn't move. I just waited, heart steady. The front door rattled, then burst open. Jake. Clara. Both of them wild-eyed, desperate. Clara's mascara was smeared, her hair pulled back like she hadn't slept. Jake's fists were balled, veins bulging in his neck. "You think you've won?" he snarled. "You embarrassed us in front of everyone. You destroyed us." I stood slowly, every joint deliberate. "No, Jake. You destroyed yourselves. All I did was let the town see it." Clara's voice cracked. "You don't understand. If this goes further, we lose everything. Our jobs, our friends, our lives. You can't do this to your own blood." Blood. I barked a laugh, sharp and cold. Blood doesn't sign fake checks. Blood doesn't throw bricks through windows. Blood doesn't threaten to bury me in my own house. You stopped being my blood the day you tried to erase me. Jake lunged forward, but I held up the folder. "One more step, and this goes to the sheriff tonight. Charges, jail time, the works. You'll be more than disgraced. You'll be convicted." He froze, chest heaving. That's when I showed them the final piece. From the drawer, I pulled out a small digital recorder. Clicked play. Their voices filled the room. Jake's drunken rant about forging old man's checks. Clara laughing about how easy it was to reroute money through her fake company. Every word crisp, undeniable. Their faces drained. Clara staggered back like she'd been slapped. Jake swayed, then shouted, "You set us up." "No," I said coldly. "You set yourselves up. I just pressed record." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Then Clara whispered, "What do you want?" I leaned close, my voice low but sharp. "I want you gone. Out of this house. Out of this town. Out of my life. You'll get nothing. No money. No property. Not a single cent. If you ever set foot here again, if you so much as breathe in my direction, this evidence goes public. The sheriff, the paper, everyone will have it. You'll never crawl out from under it. Jake's lips curled, but I saw the truth in his eyes. He was beaten. They left. Not with a bang, but with a stumble. Out the door, down the drive, into the dark where their car coughed to life and sped away. The sound faded, leaving only the tick of my grandfather clock and the faint rattle of glass in the broken window frame. I sat back in my chair, the folder still heavy in my lap. My wife's photo on the mantel caught the lamplight. Her smile looked different now, like she knew. In the days that followed, the town buzzed. People whispered their names with disgust. Jake lost his job. Unreliable, they called him. Clara's office let her go after clients pulled accounts. They moved out in the dead of night. No farewells, no explanations. Just gone. And me? I stayed. Sat on my porch in the evenings with a mug of coffee, neighbors waving as they passed. Some nodded with respect, some with pity, but all with the same thought in their eyes. The old man had won. 1 week later, a letter arrived. No return address. Inside, a single scrap of paper with 3 words scrawled in Jake's messy hand. You killed us. I read it once, then fed it to the fire. Watched the flames curl the paper, turn it black, then nothing. People think revenge is about anger, about shouting and fists and blood. They're wrong. Revenge is cold, calculated, precise. My grandchildren thought they were predators circling a weak old man. But they forgot something important. The old man had built the walls they lived in, laid the floors they walked on, signed the checks they cashed. I'd been holding them up their whole lives. And the moment I let go, they collapsed. I closed the folder one final time, slid it into the drawer, and whispered to the empty house. The verdict stands. Then I turned off the lamp. Darkness settled, and that was enough. They thought they buried me, but all they did was dig their own graves.